Board of Trustees for Sequoia Community College District. Today is Monday, June 10, 2024, and we just completed closed session. There are no reportable items for closed session, so I'd like to ask everyone to please stand and help me salute our national flag. Ready, salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In open session, item 4, public comment. Per Board Policy 2350, any person may address the board at this time either on an agenda item or other matters of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker, with the maximum time of 15 minutes per item unless otherwise extended by the board. I'd like to invite anyone who would like to make public comment concerning items on the agenda. Not seeing anyone. Anyone like to make public comments concerning items not on the agenda?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Jordan Lamb. I was here 1 month ago, serving as the negotiation chair for CSEA. I'm also the data steward here at COS. Hello, Board of Trustees. President Calvin. Last month, CSEA came to express our need for paid parental leave and to share some of our members' stories about this need. At our last negotiation meeting, the district's negotiation team rejected our proposal. At that meeting, we urged the district's negotiation team to return to the table to engage with us on this matter. In the most simple terms, the current practice requires classified employees, predominantly women, to take a 50% pay cut to have, recover, and adequately care for a newborn child. We are here today to explain our members' reality and to emphatically call on you to return to the negotiation table on this reasonable and worthy proposal. As a data-driven decision-making institution, CSEA asked the district to provide us median and average data by gender and employee category. I want to thank Dean Branch, who's not here, confidential employee Kayla Reynosa, classified payroll employees Valerie Gonzalez and Crystal Uribe for their expertise and engagement on this. That was returned to us today. The data shows that classified employees have a median sick leave balance of about 100 hours or 2.5 weeks. That is 41% of confidential employees. It's 19% of administrators, and it's 16% of full-time faculty. Part-time faculty have even less median sick leave balance than us classified employees. Throughout all employee categories, we see female employees with far less sick leave balance. This sick leave, when used for pregnancy, is exhausted quickly to receive prenatal care, which includes doctor visits, medical exams, pregnancy-induced illness, infertility treatments, for labor and delivery, for postpartum physical and emotional recovery, child bonding, doctor appointments for themselves and their newborn. When those hours are exhausted, the member has the right to continue parental leave, but receive a 50% pay cut. While this is afforded classified employees, it financially forces them back to work before adequate time is given to their recovery or to the care of their child. Once they return to work, any child care, child sickness, recovery complications, doctor visits, or personal sickness is taken without pay. Each one of those scenarios places undue hardship on growing families that deserve your care and attention. Each of these experiences are critically important to your classified employees. We're talking about less than a dozen on average per year of classified members who take this leave, who need it for the benefit and health and dignity of themselves and their families. When they're out, classified staff will continue to step up in those absences and provide exceptional service to the students. We know that the district is operationally and financially capable of extending this benefit, much like other California community colleges, cities, and the CSU system. We'd like to read a few more employee stories, and we look forward to speaking to your negotiation team more about this issue. Thank you for listening to us, for hearing that. We're going to read a few more. Dear District Board, I'm writing in support of paid family leave and to support anyone who may need this now or in the future. I was fortunate to come to COS after my children were born, when they were in elementary school, and had the luxury of staying at home with my babies. However, this is not the reality or luxury of most parents today. It takes 2 working parents to make a go of it these days, housing and living costs being what they are. Even with my kids in elementary school and then high school, there were many sick days that I had to be with them, times when I had to leave at a moment's notice. I am grateful that I am provided the use of sick time, but what if I had depleted all of those 6 hours in the act of having those children and trying to bond with them and nurture them in those early months of their lives? Employees should not have to bankrupt their sick leave to have children. My daughter is currently expecting my first grandchild, and I thank my lucky stars that she works for an employer that will honor her family maternity time with paid leave. They even gave her a week paid leave to help out when her grandfather was in hospice care. And she works for a fairly small credit union. Why can we not do the same for our COS family? We talk a lot about COS being family. I love working here, and there are many who I do consider family, but it's time that the district puts its money where its mouth is. It seems to me that an organization as large as ours and as family-oriented and progressive as we claim to be should have a solid paid family leave plan a long time ago. Respectfully, a COS member and COS employee. I think that's probably it for my time. I'm going to hand it off so you can listen to someone else besides me.
Familiar face, Katie Kane, president of CSEA here at COS. I'm going to read some additional stories. My family and I were negatively impacted by not having fully paid parental leave after the birth of our baby. Frankly, the entire process of planning vacation, family leave, / baby bonding was stressful. My direct supervisor did not have direct answers about the process of new baby-related leave. Upon a baby's delivery, Human Resources and my direct supervisor gave me contradicting information. Thanks to the union stepping in to clarify with Human Resources how family paid leave works, it was until then that Human Resources apologized for sending me incorrect information, and I was able to plan the 12 weeks of family leave, post-disability leave. Most of it was unpaid due to exhausting the 100 days of 50% sick leave. It was an incredible financial challenge to take this type of leave. To make the situation worse, somehow my timesheets were not submitted to payroll on time. The timesheets were submitted to payroll months later. I signed the timesheets on time and did not understand why the timesheets were processed later. The situation caused multiple overpayments on my leave, and upon my return, my checks were significantly reduced for 6 months. I understand that I had to return the money. However, once again, it caused financial stress on my family and I do not understand why COS did not allow me to use vacation time when I have over 400 hours. Not having fully paid parental leave after having my son and the overall process of planning the leave caused significant distress. It was such a negative experience that I became very stressed, and when I became pregnant most recently, I was not ready to tell my employer about my pregnancy because of feeling discriminated at the first time around. It wasn't until I was written up for my excessive absences that I was forced to reveal my pregnancy and losing the baby all at once. My husband and I wanted to give our son a baby brother, and we've been unable to plan a new baby due to the stress that my work has caused me. One major cause, not having full-time parental leave. Making good changes to our current parental leave process will be the beginning of a new and improved perspective from COS. We work for an institution that as a whole helps students be successful in their education and career endeavors. Therefore, it should be evident that successful traits and success may be influenced from a very young age. COS can help mothers of newborns by making the process of caring for a new baby a lot smoother. Implementing full paid parental leave after the birth of a child will stop us from putting off having children. Good afternoon, President Calvin, COS board members, colleagues, and community. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our stories regarding the need for paid parental leave with COS staff. When I had my 2 children, I was fortunate enough to have the full support of my mom, who in her words stated, "No one else but you or me will take care of my grandbabies." When my oldest son was born in 2000, she quit her job. Since I couldn't, as I needed to remain working, she stayed home to care for my two sons. She stayed home with them until my youngest graduated from high school in 2022. She was my angel. She came to my home every morning before I headed to work, so my sons never had to be taken out of their warm beds and driven to childcare. My mom was literally my angel. She did all this for me so I wouldn't have to miss so much work and wouldn't have to deplete my sick leave. I realize how very lucky I am to have a mom who was able to do this for me and my family for 22 years. Because of my mom, I was able to keep a sick leave bank for the many surgeries that I had to endure over the last 22 years. If I didn't have that sick leave bank, I would have gone into half-pay leave sooner or possibly would have had to push back a surgery. I also realize that unfortunately, not everyone can be as lucky as I was able to save such leave bank. There are many families who struggle after they have depleted their sick leave and sometimes their vacation time and are on half-pay when they are on maternity leave. Then their children get sick and cannot attend daycare and or school, and then their children or themselves require numerous doctor's visits. Fortunately, for my most recent surgery, I still had a big sick leave bank, but eventually it ran out. I chose to go into half pay for the last 2 weeks. If needed, I had enough vacation time to cover those 2 weeks and could have used that time. However, had I done so, I wouldn't have had vacation time to use from January to July for many upcoming doctor's appointments. The bare minimum paid parental leave required by the law may seem generous on the surface. However, once you factor in time after having a child, the many well baby checkup appointments, and sometimes a new mom's personal doctor appointments following childbirth, unfortunately, many times it's just not nearly enough. If the district would create a paid parental leave bucket of 4 weeks to help staff and their families, it would display a warm-hearted readiness to give more than what is required by law. After all, the district already displays a warm-hearted readiness to give its all to students that we serve. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to my story. That's the end of my time.
Is there anyone else that'd like to make public comment on items not on the agenda? Moving forward, we're board and executive staff reports. Student trustee report is, we don't have a student trustee. Board reports. Trustee Sherman.
No report.
Trustee Lane.
Just, the graduation was spectacular again, so, yeah. Kudos to all involved.
Weather was good.
Oh, I did want to comment on a lot of the great accomplishments that came with not only the main graduation, but all the different ceremonies. But I know I don't want to steal the thunder of all the different awards. No. The number of awards, a number of students participating in graduation, I think was excellent. I hope to hear about that a little later. Moving forward, foundation report, Mr. Foster.
Good evening, trustees. I wanted to report some outcomes from our most recent foundation board meeting where we approved $207,562 worth of enhancement projects for the college in the form of foundation project funding awards, and you'll see that in that little table in front of you. So that's $120,000 worth of awards to 16 different projects that span all corners of the college. And then in addition to that, you may remember we have a Local Heroes Fund. And the Local Heroes Fund has been operating for a while now, and it's an endowment fund of $2 million, generating $100,000 worth of resources each year. And so we were starting to not use all those. And so our committee created a small RFP process and got proposals from the programs that are supported by the Local Heroes Fund. So our education programs, our healthcare programs, our police academy, and our fire academy. And so we received more projects through that, and that's on the back side of your paper that I provided. Those 4 projects amounted to $87,562. So this is also above and beyond the approximately $45,000 that we will be giving out in the fall to COS alumni that are transferring over to the Integrated Teacher Education Program housed at the Fresno State Visalia campus in support of those students. There's $1,000 scholarships for every COS alum that transfers into that program and begins participating in that program in the fall. So it was a busy meeting.
Any questions for Mr. Foster?
Yeah, do we have a lot of students transferring over into the teacher program?
Well, last year, we had this program in place. There was 50, a cohort of 50 going into the program. And it's a 2-year program with an annual cohort of 50. So there's always 100 or so of them. That last cohort, there was again 50, and 43 of them were COS alumni.
Good, thank you very much. Next, accreditation report, Dr. Lacerna.
The commission met last week, so I'll have a full report at our next meeting.
Thank you very much. Superintendent President's report, Dr. Calvin.
Well, since you asked me about graduation, I guess we'll talk about graduation, President Macarino. We had our largest graduation in our 100-year history, 958 of our graduates, of which there were over 2,200, I believe. 958 chose to celebrate with us on the night of graduation. We broke it up into 2 different sessions again. It was as well run as I can remember a ceremony being run. Kudos to the 50, 60, 70 people that helped out. Director Hobbs did a remarkable job once again. We filled the bowl 2 times over, had dinner in between. Just really a great evening and lots and lots of fun. I think, Raymond, what you were alluding to was the 25 or so pre-graduation ceremonies that we started having in mid-April, some of which we talked about at our May board meeting, but just a lot of fun to see students celebrated in the way that our various programs have done. Some chose to do it in the quad, some chose the theater, some chose the Porter Fieldhouse, but all of them were spectacular and a great way to show off what we do here at the College of the Sequoias. Some had parents' involvement, and some were just a little more tight-knit, faculty and students only, but they were all wonderful, and we just had a remarkable graduation season. So thank you to everyone that participated. It was a heck of a lot of fun and a great way to show off our wares to the local community. What I'd like to do tonight, though, is celebrate one of our trustees. Lori Cardoza has a Fulfilling the Trust award here from the California Community College League. And it's given out only to those trustees that have served
Way too long.
20 years. There was a luncheon that Lori and I were invited to, but we actually had 2 graduation ceremonies on that day and didn't want to miss those. But they did send along this wonderful award, Lori, and I'd just like to hand it over to you on behalf of the league.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. This has been an easy and honorable job to do at this college, so it's been a joy. I know it's probably time for me to transition off, but I've enjoyed every moment of it, all the ups and downs. So thank you to all of you out there that have helped make it so enjoyable.
Thank you, Lori. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then finally, just we'll have more information on budget later on in the meeting. The state will solidify its budget moving forward probably a week from now. At this point, we're looking at probably a 1.07% COLA, hoping it's funded. Still working on a 3.5% deficit factor for the year we just finished, which is always kind of a bummer. They gave us 8.22% COLA last year, and then they wait 10 months and they tell you, well, we're going to take 3.5% away. here at the kind of the final bell. We may get a portion of that back, but that's just kind of some of the things we get used to, and it really is a bummer. You think you get a COLA and you spend it accordingly, and then at the final hour, they come back and want to claw back a piece of it. But more to come on the budget. But in terms of enrollment, we finished off the year higher than our pre-pandemic levels. Absolutely amazing. And if you look system-wide, that is absolutely not the case. There are still districts and colleges that are 25, 30, 35% down from their pre-pandemic highs. And so I consider our college to be blessed, and we've been intentional about a lot of things to bring students back and to keep them here, unlike a lot of colleges have kind of fallen into a few of the traps that we won't get into, and they're still suffering the consequences. And I don't know if they'll ever be the same as a result. So I'm really excited about that. We're in the midst of by far the largest summer that we've ever had, which will allow us to push some of that enrollment into the 24-25 year and set our base level. We've talked about it before, but it'll allow us to set our base level at a nice funding threshold going forward. So excited about that, and more to come once our budget is finalized here in the next week or two. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. Moving on to reports. Well, actually, any questions for President Cohen? No. Moving on to reports, I'd like to invite Mr. Arzola, Academic Senate President's report update. I do not see him in the audience, though. Costa President's report update, Ms. Redden.
So not really a report, but just a couple little comments. So I was also at both the graduations. I try to go every year. I think that's great. The second thing is, just some comments that I heard earlier, the pregnancy leaves. Most people, when they have a baby, it's very early on in their career, and so they don't have a lot of sick leave. and let's say that they finally did and they want to have a second baby, it's hard to recoup that, and then even for your second baby, you've already used it all. So kind of the nature of the beast on that. So yeah, it's definitely something that I think all, employers should think about, especially here. The last one, now this is just something I came across. It was just a mistake, and it just kind of blew my mind. And it's nothing to point out here, but on today's thing is the 5-year plan, and it talks about Tulare and how it's part of Measure J, and I knew that. But in July, you guys had posted a 5-year plan, and it basically said it was 100% district paid. And so that just, I don't know, it's not. But it was on there, and so I just kind of is this another building I don't know about? So I just thought I would point that mistake out on one of your things that you have posted on there that was presented last summer. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify, and I'm bored, we probably had 6 meetings on this. I know you're well aware. Phase 2 is about a $40 million endeavor. 60% of that did come from Measure J, funds that we've saved since 2008. I'd love to find another district that waited 16 years to use their bond funds, but we did. We held on to $24 million, actually 22 plus the interest it's earned to start that, and then the other 17 has come from district funds. So yeah, about a $41 million job, and it'll be fabulous. So I'm not sure what the discrepancy is, but I'm sure Ron and Byron will go back and look at last July and figure out what it was. But our board's well aware of how it was funded.
By Ms. Kane, CSA President's report and update. COSAFA President's update, Ms. Alberti. Report. Moving on to information report on the 2023-24 evaluation of institutional program review, Mr. Anderson.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you guys doing?
Excellent, thank you.
So, next slide, please. So, I guess we're surrounded by this, it's behind me and it's in front of me, but I just wanted to.
It wouldn't be a real report without it, so thanks
Yeah,
for including it.
Yeah, I know. Feels like it's necessary. But I just want to point out that the program review is pretty central to the integrated planning at COS. You know, it's fed by the strategic plan and then feeds into our resource allocation process and with data in the center, just very important. If you could, yeah, thank you. Next slide. You read my mind. So just to give everybody, to review what the mission of the IPRC is, we do three things. Basically, one thing that we do is we take stock. We look and see how things are working. And then after we've evaluated how things are working, we make recommendations we report to the District Governance Council. And then finally, the other leg on our stool is that we train. So every year we hire new people. Every year people come into positions as division chairs and need, to be educated on how program review works and what the best practices are, where are some potential, problems may lie. We like to help people out as much as we can. And so these are the three things. What we don't, it's also important to appreciate what we don't do. We do not evaluate program reviews. That's something that the dean does. So the committee is not responsible or do we take on any sort of work in terms of telling people you're doing this right or you're doing it wrong. But what we do, I always feel awkward saying that, is we want to make sure that program review is working as it was intended. So we do evaluate program reviews, but it's not that those evaluations don't go directly back to the units that are submitting program review, but rather what that evaluation is meant to do is to make sure or to ensure that the program review process is functioning correctly and to inform any necessary changes that we might bring to District Governance Council in terms of making a recommendation. Can I have the next slide? So we have a couple, this is one of those where that's great. So we have several self-evaluation tools that we employ when we're taking stock. We do an audit of a sample of all of the program reviews that are submitted each year. And what we're looking for in those audits are, we're looking for responses submitted by the units that are consistent with the intention of the prompts that they're responding to. So, and in particular, we're looking for the inclusion of data in decision-making processes and the connection between resource requests, the data that's presented, and sort of the rationale, the strengths and the weaknesses that are narrated in the sort of descriptive portion of the program review. So we take a random sample every year, and it's weighted so that we get a mixture of academic and non-academic units, and we just want to make sure that things are working the way that they're intended. And we also have a district-wide user survey, so in addition to looking at the work product that's being submitted, we also, with the help of the research office, reach out to everybody, whether they submitted a program review or not, as a matter of fact, and ask them for feedback and sort of take temperature. We want to know if program review is working or not working from the perspective of not the IPRC, but the people who are actually submitting these program reviews. We also then have a joint meeting, as I know it looked pretty simple. We've got strategic plan, and then we have resource allocation, and program review sits in the middle of that. But there are other committees and councils that use our information other than the budget committee and in particular instructional council, and also the Outcomes and Assessment Committee. So once a year, we get together with all these committees and we ask them a simple question: how is program review working from the perspective of your committee's needs? And is there anything that we can do in order to improve our processes so that resources can be more efficiently allocated, or the annual report on the master plan can be easily and smoothly completed. So, and then finally, we also survey our own committee members. So we ask them, how do you think the committee is working? And we take all of this information into consideration when we are making a decision of whether or not we need to revise anything and bring any recommendations toward the district governance council. And also, it also informs our training decisions, like what should we emphasize, maybe what's missing. I can't believe that we didn't have instructional council for a number of years in that third bullet point right there with our joint meeting. But this year we included them, and I actually learned a lot from them, and so we're happy to have them going forward. Could I have the next slide, please? So I didn't want to go through all of the results of the evaluation. It's a little bit tedious. I can provide that information if anybody would like to have some more detailed data. But from our audit, I selected what I consider to be the most critical question that we evaluate overall, and that is, are the units using data in order to justify their conclusions or support any claims that they're making? And as you can see in here, we've, over the past 4 cycles, we're at about close to 100%, as I think we can hope to be. So, and then in our district-wide user survey, I also selected some questions that I thought would be informative. And basically what we're looking for is whether program review is reasonable in terms of complying with it. And second of all, whether or not, and this is I think the most important question there, is whether or not program review is beneficial to the people who are tasked with completing it. And we have some pretty good numbers there. We had a dip last year, and I think Francisco presented some hypotheses as to why that we had that decline, and this year we seem to be back to our old baseline. So I was really happy to see that a vast majority of the people completing program review find it to be fairly easy to do, and also beneficial to their program. So we were pleased with these results. Can I have the next slide there? Thank you. What we have been spending a lot of time on lately is going to come to fruition this year through a process of collecting feedback, speaking to the constituents who actually use the data, and in a multi-year conversation with District Governance Senate, we had recommended that the program review cycle move from being mandatory on an annual basis to being mandatory on a biennial basis, and also allow units to have the option of completing it in any year. So if completing program review is something that is beneficial to your program on an annual basis, nothing has changed. But a lot of the feedback that we were receiving in our evaluation processes really convinced the committee, and I think ultimately we convinced District Governance Senate that this was also true, is that within a one-year cycle, it's sometimes really difficult to make a plan, carry it out, and then evaluate the effectiveness of that plan. And I dare say that this schedule was sort of degrading a lot, not every user, but a substantial minority of users sense that program review was actually useful. So believe it or not, doing it less frequently was an attempt to ensure that program review was a meaningful process for a lot. I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but I know that sometimes when I rush things, I don't feel like it was worth spending the time doing at all. So we really want to make sure that program review is not only something that we do for accreditation purposes, we're required to do it as part of the accreditation standards, but that it is something that is valued by the constituents within the college that are actually tasked with completing it. Without that sense of importance that's intrinsic to the units that are completing it, what we're getting is just compliance, and what we need is improvement. So this year, we have the best of intentions. Seems like it's going to work out great, but we'll find out because we're implementing it this year. And if it doesn't work out as we hoped, we can always make a recommendation and move back in the other direction. But I'm excited. I really hope that we can get that 85% number, which is pretty high, reported in the last slide, with respect to how many people in our survey find program review to be helpful. I'm hoping we can bump that up by 5 or 10% going forward as a result of this change. Can I have the next slide? This is what we've been what the committee's been working on most intensively over the past year, and that is migrating from an old platform, which was called TrackDat, to a new computer system that's called Nuventive Improvement Platform. It's kind of a little bit awkward, but we started this process back, it seems like 3 years ago. We were informed by the vendor that they were going to basically eliminate support, and I would really like to, at this point, mention Sarah Harris, who has led both pieces of this, both the process of choosing a new platform and then also implementing the transition. I cannot speak highly enough of her professionalism and just her dedication and hard work. She really did an amazing job leading the task force that actually included Jordan here, me, Francisco, and I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. No, that was it, huh? So the implementation task force is all here today, except for Sarah. Sarah's not. She's taking a well-deserved break, I can imagine. But I am super excited. What this new platform is going to allow us to do is speak straightly to our mission in terms of enabling us to make better data-driven decisions. I don't want to bore you with the details, but it's going to allow us to link our actions to student learning outcomes, which is something that we could not do sort of seamlessly and it was just very difficult. And the more difficult you make something, I'm not saying that we couldn't do it, but nobody was doing it just because it was not easy to do. And so I'm super excited about the ability to do that. Also, there's an enhancement that we're going to probably be asking for funds in order to add to this new platform that will allow us to also more seamlessly integrate our Tableau dashboards into the program review environment so that people can just drag and drop data. And I really do think that that is going to improve the usability of the data, and I think we'll see even more data-driven investigations as part of program review. So super excited about this. So again, we think we have it. Francisco and I just found a couple more things that needed to be tweaked just the other day, and I have to say I was very happy with how quickly the vendor responded. But there are going to be some hiccups, and it's probably going to show up in our surveys next year. But we will be addressing those, as we identify them. Could I have the next slide? Oh, that's the end. So I do want to say that I truly believe that the Program Review Committee has served as sort of a model of how COS 2.0, someday I'm excited about maybe saying 3.0, but is supposed to function, in that we're very conscientious about gathering data and receiving input, taking that data and that input and formulating policy recommendations based on that analysis, and then revisiting and continually looking at how those recommendations and changes are affecting the ability of our units to complete their program review. So I'm very proud of the committee. It's a wonderful committee to work with, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you at this time.
In comparison to how it was done in the past and the reports as a board that we would receive, would we expect a report a year from now? And would the data kind of look the same? Are you after the same data, just collecting it differently, or is it going to even look different how it's presented?
No. So are you asking about the program reviews themselves?
Yes.
Yeah. No. The data fields that we're collecting have remained constant, so those won't be changing. It's the user interface, and there were a ton of human factor issues with the old user interface. It was not very intuitive. And it is one of those things that, people only handle the program review, the software, once a year, and it's just really hard to feel fluent and comfortable in an environment that you're not operating in continuously. So those human factor impediments, the lack of the intuitive interface in the old system was really frustrating for a lot of people, and I was quite sympathetic to that. I mean, as a member of the committee, I'm seeing it a lot more often, and even I and other members of the committee would get asked a question like, how do I do this? And it was something that we hadn't seen in a while. It just wasn't easy to sort of figure out just intuitively from what was presented on the screen how to accomplish that. And the new software is much more intuitive in terms of how the user interacts with it. And
What's your goal to get to where your first program review will be complete, to where you'll feel like you used enough data with the new program that you'll report on it? A year from now?
Yeah, I would say a year. Yes,
Okay.
I would say a year from now. We will
Okay.
be able to let you know.
Okay,
Both.
I'll try to remember that.
Okay. Well, yeah. Both what our experiences
Yes.
were in supporting it as a committee and what the user experiences were.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we anticipate, I think I know the answer to the question, but I feel like I have to ask it anyway. Do you anticipate any negative impact of moving from an annual to a biennial for purposes
Yeah.
of the accreditation?
Well, what I can safely say is that I'm only one person, and I did not anticipate any negative impact. But this is not a decision that was made by just me or even the committee. We actually sat down with all of the users of program review data and asked them how this might impact them and if they could foresee any sort of negative impact. And at one point, I was deeply involved in accreditation, and I haven't been for a little while. But as I remember it, there is no prescription with regard to how frequently program review needs to be addressed in the accreditation standards. In fact, we went from a system in pre-2013 where we had a 5-year cycle to an annual cycle. So we went from a system where we didn't do a program review for 5 years and then did one to a system where we were doing it every year. And now we're going to a system where it may be done every year if that meets the needs of your unit, or if it's better suited to the needs of your unit to do it every other year. That's also an option. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah.
I did review the comments that were made for both surveys, and it did seem consistently that there were a few that looked at the units operating differently that could benefit from 2 years. I think even one said 3 years.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
It did seem like they made a good argument that it could differ by units, and so hopefully I appreciate that you guys looked at that as a consideration and are offering that too.
Yeah, I was persuaded by those comments as well.
Yeah.
Thank you too. Thank you.
Moving on to item 8 of our agenda, consent calendar. All items listed in the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. An item may be removed from the consent calendar at the request of any member of the Board of Trustees or any member in the audience and considered as a separate agenda item. Is there an interest to pull any of the items on our consent calendar?
For me.
Second.
If not, I will entertain a motion.
I thought you moved it.
No, I said none from me to
Oh,
pull.
okay. So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Sherman, seconded by trustee Cardoza. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to number 9, action items. Number 11, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the College of the Sequoias Community College District authorizing the issuance of and sale of election 2022 general obligation bond, Series A. Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Board. Good evening. Before I get to this matter, I do want to touch on what President Calvin said about Measure J and the 22.8 million and the people that I'm going to introduce right here. Our previous, I'm not talking bad previous, our previous firm that we had, our financial advisor underwriter, they didn't know about a special tax that Tulare County had. When I brought in Trinus Wright from Raymond James, Blake Bowen from K&N Financial Advisors, and Ann Rowland as our bond counsel, they worked with the County of Tulare and discovered there was a big chunk of taxes that wasn't accounted for that we get as it's called unitary tax, railroad tax, what have you, miscellaneous tax. So with that additional taxes, we were able then to issue the 22.8 million that we did a couple years back. And the fruition is when phase 2 opens up at the end of this year, it's going to be a great thing for us. So again, 22.8 and the 17. So I just wanted to introduce them. We have a great external financing team that we're going to be leading us into Measure C, which we're talking about right now. As you remember, last month I presented it as an information item to the board that go over the board priority number 8, Measure C, opening up the University Center and the Student Union. So with this, it comes to this resolution for this month, for a board resolution for you to approve the issuing or going out to sell of the $95 million that we have planned for, pending your approval, we have planned to go out to sell on the market July 10th. With that successful sale, we'll get money in the bank at the end of July. And then, of course, Byron and his team will do due diligence and start spending that money on a great student union, University Center, a whole revamping of the Mooney area, all of that we're doing over there. So I did introduce the 3. And if you have any questions for me or for those 3, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Again, I know Trustee Sherman, you did say you had a question last month. We will be spending legally 85% of those proceeds within the first 3 years. So we do that. And then we're looking at opening them in, help me here, Byron, in 28, latter 28, summer, fall. Yeah.
University Center, and I think student union would be fall of
What point does the college get reimbursed for the money they have?
So with this resolution, you are also approving, remember, we set $5 million aside to allow Byron and his team to start planning, working with the architect and whoever they need to work with to get it going. So once this is approved, we get the funds with the County of Tulare, we'll be able to reimburse that fund. And then we as a district decide what to do with that $5 million that was sitting there for that purpose there. Does the board have any questions? Again, this resolution is straightforward. It's based upon information that we shared last month. The board, is authorizing the issuance of $95 million for Measure C. Again, we'll go out to market July 10th, have the money in the bank at the end of July.
I don't have any questions. I think it's an exciting time, so.
We'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2024-09, authorizing the issuance and the sale of the 2022 General Obligation Bond, Series A.
With great compliment in terms of the presentation, both verbally and certainly in writing. My goodness sakes, just the background information on there. I mean, it's literally like an almanac of the college and our programs and our funding sources and our, all the laws and all that. So to the team, extreme thanks for putting together a wonderful package, and with that, I move for approval.
Motion from trustee Lane, a second from trustee Sherman. Megan, if you could do a roll call vote.
Trustee Lane?
Yes.
Trustee Sherman?
Yes.
Trustee Cardoza?
Aye.
Trustee Macareno?
Aye.
It's a tie.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trennis, Blake, and Ann. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
You guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all. Have a good night.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Yeah, I didn't read all 117 pages, but I did go through a lot of it because, like you said, John, the data in there is very, it's so useful for other things when you look at industry, and I just enjoyed it.
Our rule in fiscal is pass the John test. We're good. The John Ken test. We're good.
Moving to item. Moving to item 12, 2024-2025 tentative budget, Mr. Perez.
Yeah, so this is the time of the year that legally, as a district, we have to adopt our 24-25 budget. Again, our fiscal year starts July 1st, ends June 30th. And I will go ahead and share that. I'll also point out, you do have the budget book, so when I get to the PowerPoint slides, I'll just kind of say, hey, go to this page, and you can see it from there, the information. Again, just a timeline. Tentative budget starts July 1st of '24. And then we have to take to the board adopted budget in September. Again, it's for public inspection. And again, we're required to send it to the state chancellor's office. And then a audit report that is given to you, the board, either December or January of the past fiscal year. Next slide, please. Is it a motion center over here? No, just joking, just joking. It's a, you put it in PDF, I think. You got it?
Running my computer.
I think it's frozen, I apologize.
I think Blake hung up.
because it's not doing anything.
Well, I guess you can follow along on, we'll do impromptu here. You do have the slides there. So I'm going to show you the budget process timeline that you have in yours. It looks like a bunch of squares there. You're resetting? Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to wait?
I think they're done.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay. So you have that chart, a bunch of, looks like an organizational square there. You see the circle?
No, here,
Remember
in your
the-
binder, Greg,
Yes.
in your binder.
Oh.
So the governor came out with the May revised a few weeks ago. The state budget should be adopted here June 15th, which is Saturday, so either this Friday or next week. And as you know, it's constitutionally, it needs to be adopted June 15th, or the legislatures don't receive pay. So most times not, it's an on-time budget. Oh, here we go.
Where are you at?
Go to like slide 3. That one, the one that's circled, slide 4. There you go. Okay, so we're after May revise. Now that it's up in the budget committee, is up in the state. They're fine tuning the budget. When I say fine tuning, really what I want to know is going to be funded COLA 1.07. Even though it went to 0.76 to 1.07, is it going to be funded? We'll know later this week or beginning of next week. So we'll take that information. They'll do some more August adjustments up in the state. We'll take that Rainbow, Leangela, stick it in the hopper, and then in September it'll come the final adopted budget. Next slide, please. Now, this is just covering the governor's May revise. This is what he released on May 10th. Prudent fiscal planning, and there's 4. Stability, resiliency, restraint, and uncertainty.
Warning words.
Uncertainty is a big one, yes.
Red flag, red flag.
Yes. Now, under the May revise, for his folks, I'll say state agencies, and we're not one of those when you look at this. It's an 8% reduction for all state agencies. The kicker is the chancellor's office is a state agency. So they're being reduced 8%. I think the chancellor came out and said that's about 30 position reductions for them. The governor's asking statewide agencies to sweep 10,000 vacant positions. So again, we'll know more next week what they are doing. His promise to us, next slide please, is to keep us whole. Stability, no major core reductions to programs or services. How is he doing that? He's drawing on the reserves, the rainy day funds for education. Now, the second bullet is what President Calvin talked about. Now, going into 24-25, now this becomes our base. The good news is we're far past our pre-pandemic numbers, so this is not going to be an issue. Though we might grow a little over what funded growth is, but still, that's a good problem to have. So again, whatever we earn FTES revenue-wise for this year, coming up here, 24-25, will now be our floor. We can go no lower. However, we'll get if we go lower, we won't get the COLA. Usually, the old funding formula, you get COLA on top of COLA on top of COLA. This one here this is your bottom line there. Next slide, please. Again, what our assumptions are, SCIF, Student-Centered Funding Formula, 1.07. Enrollment growth is 0.5%. COLA, various categoricals, and really the big one, it's a heartache for all of us, is the Student Equity and Achievement Program, the Sea Grant. A lot of staff are being paid out of that. The state has done away with COLA the last 3 years. So what that does puts not only on COS, but everybody else a burden to keep those staff, and then when you negotiate pay raises, still paid out of there without reducing your operational. And then another bad news is deferred maintenance, energy, instructional equipment. Now remember, in 22-23, we received 7 million. 1 month left, May, they said we need to pull back 5.4 million. Luckily for COS, Byron and his team didn't spend all the money. So we were left with 2.7. Yeah, thank you, Byron. Yeah. 23-24, it went to 62,000. 24-25, there is no more maintenance, instructional equipment money, what have you. The problems and the requirements are still there for us to upkeep the district by selling Hanford to Larry. But the funding now is districts, now you find the money, now you have to do that. So again, that's another thing the state's pulling away from us there.
So in 22-23, it's actually closer to like 8.1 million, right? Because we were left with 2.7 out of 5.4. So from over $8 million in the 22-23 year to virtually nothing this year, 62,000. That's not going to put a roof on the boardroom. And then it's being eliminated for the current fiscal year. That money has to come from somewhere, and obviously we'll find it in our budget. But it's a huge hit to do away with deferred maintenance, because it also, in addition to painting and roofing and things like that, it also pays for instructional equipment, desks and chairs and various other things that we equip our classrooms with. It's a huge, huge hit.
So Brent, I read something, and I don't know if this is quite true. After reading the article, this was my interpretation of it. But would it be fair to say that some of these districts who did not spend their deferred maintenance wisely in terms of keeping up certain buildings, and then with COVID hitting, are now, some of those buildings are not even fixable anymore? They talked about the decline of school buildings. I wasn't sure if it was K through 12 or our community college system in terms of maintenance on them, how it's going to be, an issue in the next decade.
Probably some CSUs in that as well. I mean, there's some dilapidated buildings.
That's probably where it came from with the whole Fresno State thing. It was an overall state survey, but how deferred maintenance is a big issue and the state's pulling all the money away from it. So where are they going to get it?
There's been some real issues, and we've been able to stay current with our deferred maintenance, and we'll continue because we know the cost. If you don't do it, we know the cost long term. But there are a lot of K-12 districts, community college districts, and even CSUs that are in are in peril because of that. And so I don't know specifically what article it was, but it's definitely a challenge, yes. And I think it contributed to what you're speaking to, the Fresno State
Not being able to
bond.
pass their bond.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Again, district budget assumptions, again, apportionment revenue, which is the total computational revenue, and I'll get to that Excel spreadsheet in a second. COLA, 1.07, 1.07%. Deficit factor, we at the district are conservative, a little over 1%. What you just heard President Calvin talk about it earlier, a 3.5% deficit this fiscal year, so that's $3.5 million. However, we have two opportunities to get back some of that money. End of June, they do another recalc, see what, how much money is in the coffers. And then, one last time is in February. So 8 months after we close the fiscal year, then they say, okay, COS, we have enough money to pay you X amount. So we're hoping that 3.5% deficit will shrink and shrink and shrink, and we'll get it. If not, we have reserves to cover that. On the expenditure side, usually at the last 3 years, because we had a 3-year contract, there were salary increases. Here's a disclaimer. No salary increases are in there because we're district and the unions are currently in negotiations. Our base budget augmentations, which is our operational, staffing, ongoing expenditures, 2.75. Some new staffing, 900,000 discretionary, and about a little over $1 million, $1.5 million is what I just talked about, the C grant. Remember, they could not afford that anymore, so we moved some of those folks over out the C to general fund. However, I do want to point out, though, all districts, what they do is when Jessica or the Vice President of Student Services get a grant, we on the budget side look at how can that grant help the general fund in dollars. So over the years, we've been saving money within the general fund by using the C grant. Now, the coin is flipped. Now Jessica's come to us and say, we can't afford it. And we said, yes, we understand that. So now we're going to move it over to the general fund. And then there were some other folks that were miscalculated, I won't say miscategorized, but other folks like in IT or research that were paying off the C grant. Now we're putting them into the general fund. So again, it sounds like a lot, but we're just really correcting the accounting strings on there. Step and column, those folks that are not maxed out in their step and column, 1.16 million. Again, we pre-fund STRS and PERS to condition our budget. Some other miscellaneous workers' comp payroll increases, 1.1, and then the health and welfare, 127. So you see revenue on the top, 139.8 million. Expenditure side, 136.4. A budgeted surplus, about 3.38, 3.4 million, as we stand right now. And those are in page 7 and 8, of your budget book. It gives you the details of the lines on revenues and expenditures there. Next slide, please. Again, this is the 3 buckets, remember, total student center funding formula. 70% base is base allocation, which means a medium district, 2 centers, both centers over 1,000 FTES. Credit FTS is an average of 3 years, which is access, that they call it. So 69.6 million. The middle bucket is our supplemental 20%, which is our students, our social economic, the clientele that we, our students. So Pell Grant recipients, those that get the BOG or California Promise, AB 540 students, and that's prior year data, equity, so 18.8 million. And the third bucket is 10% student success, those that get associate degree for transfer, AAASs, and you see how transferring to 4 year. Are they getting transfer level math and English the first year? Again, that's an average of 3 years. So again, 10% at 12.7. So when you see on the main banner there, GFU tentative budget 100 million, 10210, 394. Our total computational revenue, TCR, was 101, 101.2. Remember, we use a conservative deficit factor of 1%. So our deficit factor is about $1 million. So our general fund budget that we're taking you tonight is that 100,210,000. If you look over to the left, our current student center funding formula is 98.7 million. So a little increase in funding there. Next slide, please. You might want to look at your book. Page 6.
I still can't see it.
Because I got my binocular eyeglasses and I can't see it.
I know, and I've got my contacts in. It's the
So
yellow
what
that
we're
gets
pointing
me.
out here is, I'm sorry for the audience, you can't see that, but for the board members, this is the calculation of the student center funding formula. So the highlighted top part is our FTES. So the 10,344, that's a 3-year average of our FTES. That's what we're getting funded off of. So if you go into calculation of base allocation of the 69.6 million, which is in the middle of that page, you'll see credit, non-credit, CDP, CDCP, special emit. You'll see all those numbers and the dollar amounts. That's the 69.6 million. You come down one lower row, calculation of supplemental allocations. Again, California Promise, AB 540, Pell on the left-hand side. Move over to 2425, and you see those are all, it's 18.87 million. Then if you go down to the next one, our student success. Again, these are all points. You get points based upon their success, what type of students they are, and it equals dollars. So again, and the 10%, you'll see the 12.7 million there. And then lastly, the bottom part there where I have highlighted total computational revenue, TCR, and move over to the 101 million. So what I just talked about earlier, you add those three up, it's 101 million. Then you see the increase over prior year, that's PY, prior year, 1.4 million. So what I'm looking at is 101 to the 99, so we're getting an increase of 1.4. Then we don't pay attention to this one, hold harmless. Basically what it's saying is that's your bottom line. We exceed the $79 million, we're at 101, yes. Then again, prior year plus COLA. So you have three instances. The state will give you TCR, hold harmless, or prior year plus COLA. You get the largest of those three. So right now it's TCR, total computational revenue, which is the 101,257. The conservative 1% deficit, so we're taking to 100,210 as a general fund budget there. So again, this is just a recap. You should see the spreadsheets that go into that, but one day I'll bore you to death and we'll go over that. But so again, a little over 100 million. Next slide, please. Our fiscal solvency plan, again, budget this year plus one. We used to go out 2 to 3 years, but nowadays it's never accurate because things are changing, things are evolving at the state. So we're 2 years. This year, our assumptions, TCR, COLA, growth, the deficit factor. On the expenditure side is health and welfare, step and column, stirs and PERS, and the budget augmentations of 2.7. Going into next year, again, TCR, COLA is again around 1% from School Services of California. Again, that's an estimate that all the K-12s and the community colleges use as just the planning purposes. And then 0.5% growth, deficit of 1%. Again, on the expenditure side, health and welfare, step and column, stirs and PERS, budget augmentations. Again, I say TBD because we need to see how this year budget goes and see what we're doing before we do any more ongoing expenditures to our budget. Next slide. Again, this is the bottom line of the assumptions I just showed you. So again, for 24-25, revenue 139.8, expenditures 136.4, so a budgeted surplus 3.38. Move on over to the right for 25-26, 141.4 million. Expenditures 138.6, so a 2.8 budgeted surplus at this point in time as we know right now. Next slide. So next steps, again, June 15th, which is Saturday, so either this Friday or early next week, we'll know what the final state budget is. Again, they'll be working up in the state up through August to do some final adjustments to the budget. We'll take that and we'll fix our adopted budget that we take to you in September for the final adopted budget. But also at September, we'll do a recap of 23, 24 on how we end. So hopefully I'll have good news on the 3.5% deficit. Hopefully that shrinks some. If not, again, we have one more time for the state to solve that, is in February, 8 months after we close. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the board may have for our 24-25 tentative budget.
Chris?
Oh, thank you for all the information you provided. ahead of time, too. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Don't ask me to repeat what you said, so.
To approve. Yeah, and a special thanks.
Yeah, and of course, the special things that you
Oh,
acknowledge.
I'm sorry. Special thanks to our Director of Budget and Categorical Leandra Miller Hernandez, Ms. Rainbow right here, our Chief Accounting Officer.
Hey, Rainbow!
She would like to start presenting this, so.
Oh, no, don't give her a mic.
She was bouncing out of her seat, I could see her.
Yeah, we're kind of geeky with numbers. Yeah.
You need an approval?
I approved, I moved to
Oh,
approve.
you-
I did,
Motion
And you
by,
second?
yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
motion by trustee Cardoza, seconded by trustee Lane.
Yes.
Yes, I got it attributed.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Very
And then you have the next two. So number 13, education protection account requirements for 2024-2025 fiscal year, resolution number 2024-10.
Thank you. This is a resolution coming out of Proposition 30 back from 2012. Basically, what it's saying is the state has given you dollars that can only be used for instructional salaries. So again, that's on page 7 of your budget book, and it's titled Education Protection Act, or account, excuse me, EPA. And if you go to the last page, maybe, or one more, there you go. So in 24-25, our EPA from the state, which is included in our $100 million budget, is 17.5 million. So what we are, and what the board is approving, and what we're attesting to, is that 17.5 will only be used for instructional salaries and benefits, nothing with administrators. So again, with that approval of that resolution, yes, sir.
Saw last year was in 16 million and change, and this year it's 17, so is it?
So as COLA goes up, that will go up, yeah.
Questions for Mr. Perez?
I move we approve resolution 2024-10.
Motion from trustee Sherman,
Second.
a second from trustee Cardoza. All in favor, say aye.
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 Oh, it's a roll
Oh, roll call, sorry.
The next three are.
Got excited.
Trustee Sherman?
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza?
Aye.
Trustee Lane?
Aye.
Trustee Macareno?
Aye. Thank you. Moving to number 14, inter-fund district loan resolution number 2024-11, Mr. Perez.
Yes, this is just for safekeeping, that the board approves this resolution. What basically it says is, if we ever come in a cash crunch where we need dollars at the drop of a hat, there are certain accounts on page 15 of your budget book that we can borrow from and pay back. So basically what this resolution is saying is that the board is authorizing the district, if there is a cash need, to go to page 15 and look at, I see Luann here, so Farm Special Reserve, District Special Reserve, Linwood Special Reserve, and the Hispanic Serving Institute Trust account that we would borrow and then pay back. But again, one of the luxuries of the district, we do have a good reserve that we need that in times of economic uncertainty, so it's always makes me feel safe and makes me sleep better when I see a good reserve. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this resolution, 2024-11.
What's Luann think of that?
Pardon? Luann doesn't have a lot of money in that
Everything
account.
She's not the farm special reserve?
She is.
Questions for Mr. Perez?
No, I move to approve resolution 2024-12.
Second.
Motion by trustee Cardoza, seconded by trustee Sherman. This is a roll call vote. Megan, please.
Trustee Cardoza?
Aye.
Trustee Sherman?
Aye.
Trustee Lane?
Aye.
Trustee Macareno?
Aye.
Just for the record, that was 2024-11, right?
Yeah.
11, sorry, I'm one ahead. Yep. My bad. I turned my page.
That's why there's two. Three of us. Four.
Item 15, approval of appointments of education and classified administrators, resolution number 2024-12. Mr. Brett.
Good evening. At COS, we have a little under 60 managers. And if you're a manager at COS, you're employed in one or two ways. If you're a superintendent or a vice president, you're offered multi-year contracts. For the remaining managers on campus, however, we're given what is kind of a one-year contract, but it's referred to as an appointment. So this is the time of year where I come to the board and I ask the board to formally appoint the non-presidents and non-vice presidents to a one-year appointment. And that appointment lasts from July 1st through June 30th. So you have in front of you a resolution which formally appoints these 50-plus managers to a one-year appointment. So I would ask the board to formally approve by adoption of the resolution in front of you.
Questions for Mr. Brett?
See, recognizing some truly exceptional people, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion by trustee Lane is seconded by trustee Cardoza?
No, Sherman.
Trustee,
She can have it if she wants.
trustee Sherman, seconded by trustee Sherman.
He was louder.
Megan, this is a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Lane?
Yes.
Trustee Sherman, we said Sherman, right?
Mhm.
Aye.
Okay. Trustee Cardoza?
Aye.
Trustee Macarena?
Aye. Thank you very much. Next, item 16, bid award, COS Baseball Clubhouse Modular Building, Mr. Woods.
Yes, good evening. The district is currently pursuing the construction of a new baseball clubhouse modular building to be located at the baseball field here in Visalia. In front of you, you have a recommendation to award a formal bid for the design and construction of the modular building itself. It's a standalone building, concrete slab foundation, modular building, as I mentioned, 1,400 square feet. There is a plan actually on the, I think it's the third, fourth page, maybe? Yeah, right there's kind of a conceptual floor plan that we solicited for bids. And then up above that, you can see the location on the site along the third baseline. The page before that, sorry. Yeah. There you go. So it's located right along the third baseline, just north of the hitting tunnels. And then the page before that shows a conceptual kind of rendering of the, you can go up one. That's kind of what the outside would look like, just to give you an example. And so what we put together is just I guess a bid package establishing design criteria and some specifics that the company would have to formulate a bid around. And so in this case, Mangini Architects is the architect on board for this project. And they put together the bid package. We opened bids on the 30th. And JTS Modular Incorporated of Bakersfield was the only bidder. So the contract base bid amount is $585,000. And again, that is just for the construction, design and construction of the building. So they will actually prepare a full package of architectural drawings. We send it to DSA for plan review. Once we get it back, then we'll go ahead and they'll start construction of it. We'll also package up a site plan or a site bid package to solicit formal bids for all the site work incorporated with the project itself. So the site contractor will go ahead and he'll put together all the concrete involved, all the walkways, the slab, any other utility improvements, and the JTS will work with them and drop the building right on top. So the, you'll see in the agenda item, projects funded by district capital project funds. Total project cost is roughly $1.3 million, 1.3, 1.4 is what we're looking at right now. So this is right on target with what our initial estimate was for the building itself. I went over the schedule. As far as construction goes, we're going as fast as we possibly can. So the sooner we get this done, the better. But realistically, I would say aggressively, we're looking at a November through January construction schedule on the site. So that's booking it. So hopefully we can hit that. Hopefully Jody Allen doesn't get mad if we hear late. So because we got to work around the baseball schedule. So with that in mind, we're here seeking Recommendation to award the base bid in the amount of $585,000 for the COS Clubhouse Modular Building to JTS Modular Bakersfield. Any questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
Byron, is that pretty common to have only one bidder on this type of project? Is that
Yes,
just a
for
very?
this specific design, yes, just because it is a concrete slab foundation.
Okay.
So most of these modular companies will do a raised floor. So I think there's only maybe 2 vendors out there. And just a quick note, this is actually the same manufacturer that we used for the stadium concession stand building, which we were very pleased with. Trustee Lane.
I may have missed it, but what's the fate of the existing facility?
So the existing facility, you'll see in the agenda item at the beginning, their locker room is an old converted
Right.
storage room.
Right.
Correct, yeah.
So what happens to that?
Oh, we'll repurpose that, and that'll be the coach's lounge.
Got it.
So this is entirely just for the players.
Because
The coaches will also use the showers, but
Okay.
that's the plan. Yeah, good question, thank you.
And Brent, we don't have to declare this a failed bid and sole source it? Okay.
Move to approve?
Motion by trustee Cardoza,
Second.
seconded by trustee Lane. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does it come pre-painted already?
Yes, well, actually, that's a good question.
I
Or
think they
didn't-
did.
It's stucco, so yeah, it has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
didn't
color's
see that.
integrated into the stucco.
I think the high school in Tulare used the new high school farm. That's the same person that did it, and they came out really nice.
Yeah, they're a very good company.
Good. Next item, number 17, 2026, 2030, 5-year construction plan, Mr. Woods.
Yes, the 5-year construction plan, this is submitted every summer to the Chancellor's office, and it outlines the prioritization of the district's construction projects for the next 5 years. We're always planning 2 years in advance based on the funding, I guess, scenario up at the state. So there are, let's go ahead and skip to the list on the 3rd page. So I'm glad Tracy read this. I'm glad somebody reads this, but no, I'm glad Tracy brought this up because I did provide some clarification in this year's breakdown, and we'll dive into it in a second. But starting at the top, the number 1 priority project is the Basic Skills Center. I've noted some orange text, meaning that project would involve state funding. So the Basic Skills Center, also known as the Educational Support Services Building, is complete. We are just wrapping up loose ends, and in the agenda item itself, there's a little detailed breakdown of every single one of these projects. But that shows you kind of roughly the final cost breakdown. We got a $17.7 million building for only $2.4 million in district funds. That's how you play the game with the state. So great return on investment there. Building's fantastic. Working on closeout items as we speak. Project number 2 is phase 2 out in Tulare, Technology and Trades Complex. So we are currently under construction. We're looking at a phased occupancy, so I've got 2 dates there, October 2024 and January of 2025. There is one program that will be moving in October. The contractor is expected to be done per contract, I think it's right around the 1st of October. If you recall, you did hear that they had 30 days in rain delays. So we credited those, and that's where it ends up, about the end of September, early October. So they are cranking out there trying to hit that deadline. But we should be completely moved in for the start of school in January. Total project cost on that, $41.2 million. Again, these are estimates. And this is where I broke down the district funds versus Measure J funds. In the past on these board agenda items, on these 5-year plan agenda items, I would identify district and state. And then I realized this year, I'm like, you know what, I need to break out the district / local bonds versus state as well. So made it a little more clear this time around for you.
But as far as the state is concerned, that's 100% district funded.
100% district funded, correct, yeah,
If it's
from the
not
state's
state
lens.
funded, it's district funded, however we decide to do it.
Absolutely. So yeah, district funds, we're looking at roughly 18.3. The Measure J is 22.8, 22.9. The project number 3, the University Center / Promenade, again, 100% district funded through Measure C. Ballpark, $57.9 million right now for the University Center and the promenade itself. The promenade is kind of the connecting site work between the Student Union and the University Center. So design development is in progress. In fact, we just had another meeting last week. And I would think we'd probably release some renderings pretty soon. It is very exciting. It is a very
Do we get to walk
incredible
through it,
project.
kinda? I love that.
But we are flying,
the
trying to get
slides.
this thing
Look,
into
they're
the
there.
state for plan review and under construction as soon as possible. You'll see the estimated construction start date is January 2026. I feel good about that date. I think we should be at DSA in January. Occupy in summer of 2028. I think that's conservative. We're looking at probably late spring 2028 realistically. You got the total project cost right there. Related to that is the Student Union project. And so that will replace the Cedar building. We'll demolish the Cedar building, build a new 2-story Student Union building in its place. The food services and the other programs will move into the new building. Then we'll demolish Alta Peak, the cafeteria, the existing cafeteria, and replace it with site work, a plaza. You can see the scheduling on that. It's about 6 months behind the University Center, and that's just because of the resources we have in place preparing all the drawings. Occupy by fall of 28, cost on that $35 million. So you'll recall Measure C is $95 million, so this gives us a little bit of contingency and some soft costs. And project number 5, Science Building in Hanford. This was submitted as an FPP to the state last year. That is a final project proposal. And so there's a pretty detailed set of drawings and a narrative that goes with it that's submitted to the state. And it was approved as an FPP, and then they backed it out because it was not on the list for funding. And so they decided to identify it as IPP approved, which is an initial project proposal. We will resubmit it this year as a final project proposal again. Pending state funding, so you're looking at a total project cost of just over $51 million. The district would be on the hook for the minimum 25% match. In this case, it's about $12.8 million. If it were to get funded in 2 years, we would look at occupying in the fall of 2030. And again, we went through all this with basic skills, and it happened like that. In 9 years, but it seemed like it happened like that.
No kidding.
Project number 6, Performing Arts Modernization. That is modernizing the Sawtooth Theater, Music Wing, also demolishing Ponderosa and recreating that space as part of the Sawtooth building. That was also submitted as an FPP last year. They backed it down to IPP approved. We will resubmit it this year as a final project proposal. It will also be pending state funding. Total project cost is roughly $35 million. The district's got the 25% match of just under $9 million. And again, all these numbers might vary. The deadline to submit all this to the state is July 1. So I have a few weeks to just go through and tweak some numbers and see how it all ends up. But any questions on all this project? Yes.
On project 3, how are we coming with vacancy of our apartments? Because at some point, we're going to have to tear them down.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to lean on President Calvin. I think they're the duplex and the 7-plex. I think we're shooting for the fall for everyone to be out. And then the large apartment complex, I think we're giving them until just after the first of the year, thereabouts, January,
We're right on
February.
schedule with all.
Are we going to have to evict, or are we going to be
Oh,
all
no,
right?
no.
We're working with them.
Okay.
We may even credit some of the renters back, once they're fully paid and it's time to move out. Give them a couple of months back. We're gonna be good about that.
Our goal is to have everything vacated 6 months before construction starts, just to give us some time to, get things organized.
Around 5 and 6,
Yes.
those proposed projects, assuming that the statewide facilities bond passes in November, do those each score well enough that we would be funded in the first go-around? And if so, when would that, looks like combined $21 million, $22 million be needed?
Good question. There's a scoring metric that we put together with these projects. It's all out of 200 points possible. The performing arts modernization scores very well because one of the components of the score is the age of the facilities. So that building is, I think it was 60, maybe 50 years old, just about 50 years old. So we get a good chunk of points for that. And I think that scores right around 147 out of 200, and that's a pretty solid score. The science building, however, that is a growth project. That has a slightly different scoring metric. Hanford's a newer campus, and I think that scores right around the 120s, which is not as competitive, but there is a backlog at the state level. And I think that's the reason why they downgraded us from a final project proposal to an initial project proposal. So if there were to be a statewide bond, there is a chance. I think that the performing arts could get bumped up. And as soon as we know, as soon as the project's funded, our local match, that 25%, we'll need to provide that towards the tail end of the project. So in this case, it would be right around, say, in 2029.
And then can you buy up your score by including a larger match? 25% is the minimum.
Yeah, I think
So
you
there's a
get,
provision for scoring better if you increase your percentage match, is that right?
yes, there is.
So we would bring that to the board if we were interested in being aggressive with whichever one of those projects scored the best, and my guess is also it would be performing arts.
Mm-hmm.
But we might be able to hedge our bet a little bit.
Need an approval?
Yes.
I move we approve the 5-year construction plan.
A motion by trustee Sherman, a second by trustee Cardoza. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right,
Wait, one final item.
yes.
Somebody in the room had a birthday yesterday, so we're gonna sing happy birthday to our superintendent. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Brent. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lucky I didn't bring you a cake with candles.
29. My goodness sakes.
Wonder why my wife is here, now I know.
Meeting adjourned.